Thank you. It's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning on behalf of Georgetown University, our Social Enterprise Initiative, as well as the Global Human Development Program of the School of Foreign Service. Here at the McDonough School of Business, one of the things that we talk about and that we're committed to is developing leaders with the capacity and the commitment to serve both business and society. And we also look for opportunities to partner with organizations that we think are using business and market forces to make a true difference in the world. And I think this opportunity to partner with Agora is just emblematic of what we think is important for us to be doing as a business school. And I'm also proud of the fact that at the center of this activity are two alums of our school, Ben Powell and Ricardo Turan, who I've met this morning. And it's always encouraging to see people who take the values that we espouse here at Georgetown and turn them into something that's actually having an impact on the world. So this is a proud moment for us to have our alumni come back. And I know that there are other alums also who are here and involved in this work in impact investing and with Agora. So my handlers have written a few notes for me here, but I'm going to go off script and just say a few things. One, I think that this area of impact investing has huge potential to change the world and to change the way we think about how money and capital should make a difference. I know we go to lots of conferences, right? I don't know about you, but I go to lots of conferences, and and sometimes you can think to yourself, gee, another conference. But I would just make you aware of the fact that just about every idea that has helped to transform the world in the last century took root at some conference. Some group of people who were galvanized around a similar idea. They may not have even been talking about it the same way, found themselves coming together at some convening, some conference, and put together the constituencies that were needed to actually turn that idea into a powerful force. And we never know when that is going to happen. And my wish for you is that this conference becomes the conference where some idea takes root and catches fire, because there were a diverse set of people here who represented all the different constituencies that need to come together to actually give this movement power and force to make a difference in the world. So that's my wish for you over these next few hours, that you'll be together. And I know the potential for that to happen is here because it's happened so many other places at different times in the world's history. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Powell, who will take us on our journey today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Thomas. That was a perfect framing of what we're trying to do here in the next couple of days. So my name is Ben Powell. I'm the founder and CEO of Agora Partnerships. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you today. And I wanted to start by telling a very short story about how I got excited about what we now call impact investing. I think everyone in this room is here because at some point something happened to them that made them decide that investment or entrepreneurship, innovation, these were words that were more than words, but was really a way of thinking and acting. And I just wanted to share with you kind of my story. So for me, I started a miniature golf course, some of you know this, in Mexico in my 20s. And one day, I came back to check on the business. I was living here in Washington at the time. And everybody was high-fiving. And I said, what's going on? What's happening? And it turned out that a young woman named Maribel, who was our cashier, had just gotten the extraordinary news that she had been approved for a loan from the government to buy a small apartment for herself and her 2 daughters. Now, this was a woman who, before working for us, had never held a job in the formal economy. She had never had a bank account. But because of the small job that we had offered her, she was able to establish a credit history. She was able to grow, to develop, and eventually to buy her own apartment. And at that moment, I felt like I was making more of a difference in the world than at my day job, which was working at the White House Budget Office. And so I quit, and that put us on a trajectory that really has brought us all together today. And I think everyone has a story like that. We are here right now because we all in this room believe in one thing. Whatever our perspective, we all believe that entrepreneurship needs to be an absolutely critical and central part of development throughout the world. And that not only entrepreneurship, but a particular kind of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneurship that deliberately creates shared value for all stakeholders. That is what we mean when we talk about impact entrepreneurship. And it is a way of doing business that is as old as business itself, but also in some ways is new. And it is this kind of business that we are here to support. At the center of the ecosystem to enable these businesses to succeed is the entrepreneur. And this is a conference that is about celebrating entrepreneurship and very concretely about supporting the 21 incredible companies that are here at IIA to discuss with you their challenges, their vision, and to invite you as investors, as supporters, to partner with them so that they can harness market forces to create change in their communities and in the world. So it's a very noble and very challenging purpose that we set ourselves to here. I believe, and all of us at Agora believe, that it is so hard to invest in early stage companies, particularly in difficult markets. There are so many challenges that we will never crack this nut unless we come together as an industry. And that is very much what this conference is all about, as Dean Thomas so eloquently noted. What we are trying to do is bring together the core stakeholders that are necessary to make this whole endeavor viable. We need to build a strong foundation for impact investing, and that strong foundation begins with early stage companies. It is not just about scale. It is about building an enduring foundation that is hitting on values and hitting on cultural attitudes and helping find new ways of bringing capital into companies that can turn that capital into true impact. So we have universities here. Universities have a huge role to play with their human capital, with new social investment funds that are being created. We obviously have the investors here who are willing to put in their money and time and take the risk. We have development finance organizations here who have a whole arsenal of tools that they can use. But these bureaucracies do not move very quickly. They are comprised of individuals who often are fighting big bureaucracies. So we are here to support those individuals who are intrapreneuring within their own organizations. We are also here, of course, to participate with the funders. There's a lot of funders who are looking at ways of leveraging their grant capital to catalyze a whole industry, and they have a very important role to play. So anyhow, we want to bring everyone together at IIA, and we really hope that true action happens, that true results happen as a result of this conference. There's an orientation here towards action. At the end of the conference, people will be coming up and talking about some of their commitments. Anything on the schedule that says collective action, be warned that if you go to that, you will be expected to start immediately coming up with ideas for how we can better work together. At the end of this conference, our team is going to assemble a report, which will be disseminated to all of you and also to all of the folks who are not able to make it here. And that report will outline some of the key learnings and findings and discussions over the next couple of days. It will also outline concrete commitments that all of us are going to make to move forward. This conference is just one small piece in a much larger puzzle, but our hope is that by focusing attention on how to build the early stage piece of the impact investing and impact entrepreneurship ecosystem, we will be able to advance considerably as an industry and ultimately drive more capital to more great companies. So I want to thank you for coming. There'll be a lot of great coffee at this gathering, and the coffee is thanks to a great entrepreneur who I am now going to introduce. His name is Martin Mayorga. And we've invited him to basically give the entrepreneurial keynote and to talk a little bit about his experience. We talk a lot about shared value, and sometimes it's not really clear what we mean by that. I think that the experience of Mayorga Coffee really shows what shared value looks like in practice. And investors are very focused on metrics. Funders are very focused on metrics. At the end of the day, the entrepreneurs are the ones, I believe, who are closest to understanding what true impact is. And if we can engage with the entrepreneurs at the level of values and impact creation, it's going to be the entrepreneurs themselves who will really come up with the best formulations of what shared value is. And I think that Martin Mayorga and Mayorga Coffee is a great example of exactly how a company can do that. So welcome, and it's now my great pleasure to introduce Martin Mayorga. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me here. First of all, I apologize. I have allergies. It's incredible to be here. You know, I have to say that I do a lot of talking, and I go to a lot of conferences, and this is the first time I kind of feel at home. You know, I started a business actually at Georgetown, and I'll explain how that process took place. But, you know, the concept of having this perfect combination of investors and entrepreneurs and producers, growers, all work together for a common cause is tremendous. And it's really what's driven me to do what I do and really work extremely hard to achieve our goals as a company. So I'm here to share with you guys what I've done, why we've done, how we've grown as a company, and really our vision has held us together through the process to inevitably be here and share this moment with you. And I'd like to take a special moment to actually thank the investors that are here. I was so opposed to having outside investors at a point that I almost wrote it into my mission statement because I did not see the connection between you know, the need of an investor to over-focus on returns and what we try to do to really improve society as a whole. And it says a lot about you guys that are here that are looking at this and seeing that this is the way of the future. I personally don't think it's a new and unique concept. I think it's the way things have to happen nowadays. I think with technology, with access that we have globally, this is the way that we have to do business, and not only for the sake of financial sustainability, for our environment and for our children. So I appreciate you guys all coming here. And I usually don't do PowerPoints, but I do tend to get off topic, so the PowerPoints to kind of keep me on topic. You know, Ben talked a little bit about his experience and what got him to really be interested in this type of engagement. My experience is basically based on my background. I was born in Guatemala. My father was from Nicaragua, my mother from Peru. My first memory that I can think back to was being in Guatemala. I was about 4 years old, and I went to the market with my mom. And upon leaving the market, we had all our food, all our groceries, everything we needed. As we were leaving, a woman and her son approached us, and it was almost a mirror effect. The son was standing in front of me, the woman was standing in front of my mother, and they were begging for money. And I just remember at a very young age thinking, there's something wrong with this picture. I see somebody that looks like me, is my age. I see somebody that looks like my mother, is her age. We're walking out with, handfuls of food, and they're begging for food to survive for the day. And that moment really struck me, and I didn't think how important it would be until I got to my 20s and I realized what I needed to do with my life. So inevitably, like most people in Nicaragua, we left Nicaragua, went to Costa Rica, went to Peru, ended up in the US. But really, my childhood in Nicaragua and throughout Latin America really showed me the disparity that we had. And we weren't from a well-to-do family, but my father was educated in the US, so he was able to start a career. But very young, I saw there was something wrong. There was something wrong with a society wherein people could have such a disparity in basic needs based on nothing short of just being born in a different, a block down the road. We then moved to the US. Do I have control here? Okay. And the next big moment for me was I studied here. I became an American kid. I played baseball, did everything, had summer jobs. And I think at some point, I think more for survival, compartmentalized that childhood part of me that grew up in Latin America and just became an American kid. And then in '91, we started going back to Nicaragua after Violeta Chamorro came back into the presidency and Nicaragua opened back up. And it just all hit me. It all hit me in the fact that this country had almost been in a time warp. And nothing had changed. Things had actually gone a little bit backwards in a sense. And I felt almost a frustration and desperation. I was a pretty young kid. I was 18, 19 years old. But again, it brought that back to me, that there's something that had to be done. I then, fortunately, was able to have an opportunity to come to study at Georgetown. That was a tremendous experience for me in the fact that I was able to understand the business basics. I studied finance. I learned what has become very important for me as I run my business, which is the understanding of the financial side of my business. But it actually gave me a lot of tools to really launch my business. I actually met with my business law professor to write my business plan, and I got really engaged on the business side while knowing I had to do something in Latin America. And then on one of my trips back to Nicaragua, I was talking to an uncle of mine who basically was telling me he couldn't make a living. He was growing coffee, he was growing his capacity, but he could not make ends meet. And I remember, and I wish I still had it, he wrote down on a napkin a diagram of the supply chain. And it went farmer, sometimes kind of a middleman, a mill, an exporter, an importer or broker, typically a distributor, roaster. There were so many steps in the chain that I was young and I think naive enough to say, well, that's crazy. Just send the container to the US, I'll sell it right to a roaster, we'll cut everybody out, we'll make extra money. And it was part of how I was paying through Georgetown. And it worked. And I didn't know at the time, but what I was looking at and what I saw was a business model and a supply chain model that was antiquated and that was broken. And it really woke me up to think things could be done better. And that's when I started my business experience. And ultimately for me, it was to take those two sides of my life. What I saw in Latin America, what troubled me as somebody that saw complete disparity and really lack of opportunity, and then what I'd been given for no reason that I had actually earned, the opportunity to have an education, to have the capacity to enter products into the US market and to build a brand and to build a business around what I believed in. And I started actually a cigar business initially. I started that at Georgetown, and we started distribution of that brand in '94. And through that is really where I started spending time in the north of Nicaragua and developed my Agora coffee at the same time. Ultimately, what became the driver behind everything we did was this. It's our vision statement, and it's amazing how it took about 12 years to run a business to go back and really figure out why we were running the business, why we worked so hard. And it's exactly what I saw at a young age and through the experience with my uncle. There are business models, there are social models, there's environmental models that are just broken. And I think as entrepreneurs, part of what makes us unique is we don't see things the way they are as being the right way. We find ways to do things better. And I think at this point, we owe it to ourselves and to society to look at the entirety of a business model and supply chain to really make a positive impact across the board. And that's what we do every day. This is a more digitized version of the diagram I spoke about. And this is, again, what we try to do across the board. And if you see, there's a significant amount of non-value add, in my opinion. And our goal is to really grow the supply chain to one that is open in communication from producer to consumer, value add participants only in the supply chain. And the biggest thing for us in our industry is taking the financing out of a opportunistic approach that really works on the aggregation of coffee and the go-to-market side of coffee, and decoupling that to be one of the shared partners in what we do. So we take our financing group, they're actually in the UK, they talk to us, they talk to our farmers, they facilitate rather than come in and try to be opportunistic about, double dipping or really taking advantage of situations. And it's been a tremendous model. And the beauty is, we've found this to be our competitive advantage. We didn't really know it until very recently we started getting into private label. We do private labeling now for some of the world's biggest retailers. And this is why. Because we can sit down, we can impact the quality of the product, the value, and react in a better way than companies 100 times bigger than us can, because we're efficient with our supply chain. And we've really learned that, to us, the model of growing a business in a responsible way isn't just a feel-good thing anymore. It's really, in my opinion, the wave of the future. And the way that a small company can grow a brand, can grow a distribution model, and actually compete against companies much larger and a lot less efficient in a way. These are more our values, and our values, I always go back to our, I was raised in a Latin American family, and I think my values really got me through a lot of tough times and really held me to a certain, compass, a moral compass, and, the sense of obligation and responsibility. And it's very important to have the values that we got in I grew up having in Latin America to really hold us through. Anybody that knows me knows that I hate the saying it's just business, because to me, business is all about people. And it's people with a shared value, and also, I think, understanding that none of us, at least for me, I'm not here because of myself. I'm here because of so many circumstances in my life that started as a child, and people who believed in me, and people who believed in what we were doing. And I think the concept of giving back, while I believe it's a little bit over-marketed, again, is a sense of that's the right thing to do, and that's what we do as a company. We streamline our business model not only to be more business efficient, but to also then add value to communities and to individuals that are part of that. We as a company donate a percentage of our profits to a group called the Fabretto Foundation that helps kids in Nicaragua tremendously. So for us, it's collaboration. Fabretto supports us at Origin. We provide some support back in any way we can. And that's really, again, that's our model. That's how we grow our business. I'm honored that I'm standing here in front of you guys. I think we're still working hard. We're still trying to break models. It's exciting to be here and see that there's more people that are getting excited about this, and most importantly, that there's investors that really care about the same types of values. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Martin. So it is now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, and this is our investor keynote. And it's my real pleasure to introduce Luis Ross. Luis runs something called the Opportunities for the Majority at the Inter-American Development Bank. They have channeled over $250 million into projects that support poor communities throughout Latin America, I think in about 18 countries. And it's really one of the more innovative and interesting programs at the Inter-American Development Bank. But before that, Luis was really a pioneer in our field. When he was at the World Resources Institute, he created the New Ventures program, which spread to 5 or 6 countries and has really taken root in a number of countries, particularly Mexico. And so this is a guy who understands what an accelerator is and who understands the importance of early stage companies that are trying to do business differently. So it's my real pleasure to introduce Luis Ross.
Well, thank you very much, Ben, for this nice introduction. It's always a hard act to follow the entrepreneurs because they have the energy and they really are change makers. So, but anyway, it's a real pleasure to be here today. Ben, thank you very much and congratulations for organizing this event together with Georgetown University and the Business School. I think you've been doing an amazing job promoting the accelerators as part of the ecosystem that is important to be created in order to create the kind of pipeline that we want of social and environmental entrepreneurs. So congrats, really. I'm really thrilled to be here today because it's always good to talk to an audience that is made of innovators, risk takers, and entrepreneurs that take it to heart. So for me, as Ben said, I've done this for many years in China, India, Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico, and it's quite exciting to be next to entrepreneurs and to work closely with them. And why? Why is that? Because I strongly believe that SMEs are engines of change, and particularly the social and environmental entrepreneurs. They really function as laboratories of social change. And I always had discussions with other groups who were targeting SMEs as more traditional business. And I say, listen, we all understand the value of SMEs as traditional business, but when you overlay that, the social and environment dimension to it, it makes such a big difference. And so it's not just business, as you said. It is business with impact. It is business with the power of transforming the social reality. And I think this is why it's important for us to be here today. I'm really honored to be here representing the IDB group. And I say this, even though it's a large multilateral bank, because I think that no other institution in Latin America has supported and promoted more the culture of entrepreneurship and SMEs in this part of the world. And we do this thinking of the SMEs as protagonists, as those who really take the leadership. And for that, we have structured different programs of finance. The one story that I like to talk about is the role of the Multilateral Investment Fund in the region. When you think about 10, 15 years ago, the venture capital industry was almost non-existent in the region. And the Multilateral Investment Fund take to itself the responsibility to help countries and to pass new regulations, work with local institutions to support the growth of the venture capital industry in countries like Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and many others. And again, it's important to understand in the value chain, you have the accelerators, you have the angel investors, but you do need the venture capitalists to be able to pick it up and invest on those deals. So I just take this example as one example of the role of the IDB in the region, and I think the venture capital example is one of the most powerful. It is also important to highlight that one of the other groups within the IDB is the IIC, which we call the Corporación Interamericana de Finanzas. Basically what IIC does, and has been doing since 1989, is to invest in SMEs. This is their mandate. This is their core business. And you have to think of them when you think about private equity, you have to think about when you think about venture capital, but also their lending program is a very strong lending program. And they are always finding new ways to make finance flexible to reach the SMEs. So here is important for us to highlight. And as Ben has referred to it, in 2007, the president of the bank has created this new initiative called Opportunities for the Majority, which the main goal has been to identify market-based solutions to serve the base of the pyramid. And when you look at Latin America and you think about the last decade, over 50 million people have entered what we call the middle class. But they actually middle class from a purchasing power point of view, but they are not middle class when you think about service and goods at affordable price that come to them. So we have to develop the whole infrastructure, the private sector ecosystem, to begin to look at these markets as opportunities, as business. And so this is our mandate. That's what we've been doing. And Ben, you referred properly, $250 million invested, 18 countries, 45 operations. And these are not grants. These are not grants. These are not corporate social responsibility projects. These are market-based solutions to serve the base of the pyramid. So again, even though the IDB is large and has different groups within the private sector, we can still be very innovative when you think about supporting entrepreneurship in the region. And that's what the IDB has been doing for many years. Let me talk quickly about the role of accelerators, because as Ben has referred to it, I did it for many years in the early 2000s, and the experience is that you're always alone doing that job. It's like you are the first one, and you are there, and you look it up, and you see the investors, you look it up, you see the angels, but when it comes to support you as an accelerator, you're there by yourself. And it's so tough to be there by yourself because you are meeting with all these really amazing entrepreneurs. Some of them with solutions. They are incredible. And you know that if you let it go, that support, they might not be there in a year or two because they will fail. So for me, when I was traveling around the world and meeting entrepreneurs just like you guys who are here today, the sense that I have sometimes is say, if I don't keep helping them, they might not be here a year or two from now. And then the world might be missing a tremendous opportunity to change a social dimension, a social aspect or an environmental aspect of our reality that we care so much about it. So what we have to think about is how do we support accelerators? And I'm happy as IDB to be supporting Agora. And we hope we continue to support you and many others in the region to keep doing this amazing job they're doing. But it's very important for the investors to look at the accelerators and think about they are out there building this robust pipeline that I can pick from later on. So wouldn't the investors be able to really participate onto this? Couldn't we think of a pool of investors that would finance accelerators independent of the deals they're going to take out of it? Because at the end of the day, we have to find new ways to fund the accelerators. We need to have many more accelerators out there. More than a decade has passed since we launched New Ventures. And we can still count in one hand the number of accelerators that are successful in the region. So I think that is an important conversation to have with investors. I hope this forum has this conversation. I'll be happy to be here to provide my insights. But I really want to finish also with a conversation about the investors. And I was looking through my notes, and I found a really interesting quote from an environmental entrepreneur that provides a sense of urgency for the investors in terms of taking action. And he says, when the company is in this stage of growth, we need to move quickly with everyone in the chain. The investors can't say to us, I really like your product, I love your project, but I want to wait maybe 1 or 2 years to invest in it. And he closed saying, it doesn't work for me. So the time to invest is agora. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luis. We should probably just end on that note because I couldn't have put it any better. But I will say, Agora means now in Portuguese, but it also means marketplace in Greek. And for those of you who are wondering why our name is Agora, it's really, in ancient Greece, people would gather in the Agora. It was the first place, really in recorded history, where different folks would come together and discuss and debate and figure out how to work together. And that is very much what we as an organization are trying to promote, what this conference is trying to promote. I want to say one more thing. Ultimately, what we're doing, this is a people business. This is driven by trust, by relationships, by surfacing the right amount of data. But at the end of the day, this is about investing in people and partnering with people. And I want to just take, I guess, my liberty of having the podium right now before we go to our coffee break. I just want to thank one person. There's many, many people that I want to thank, but there's one particular person that I do want to thank who's here, who got on a plane from Cambridge, Massachusetts at 6 a.m. this morning to be here with us. And this is someone who has supported me and our whole team from the very beginning. And I think sometimes you just need to give recognition when recognition is due. And so I would just ask everybody to give a warm welcome and hand to my wonderful mother, Barbara Powell. So thank you, Mom, for being here, and thank you for indulging me that. Now we have a coffee break with delicious coffee from Mayorga Coffee, and we really just wanted to sort of kickstart this conference with a little bit of speechifying. I don't know about you, but I felt like the speeches that I often hear at conferences tend to kind of bore me. I really learned a lot from Luis and Martin. So I hope that folks are energized. This is going to be a very exciting conference. There's going to be a lot of talking and working together. And so drink your coffee. We're going to reconvene here in a half an hour exactly. And you'll then hear all of the pitches from the entrepreneurs and some more words of framing of the conference. So welcome, and I'll see you at the coffee bar.